Hello and welcome to the Happiness Is podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness is Egg-Shaped. And today I'm speaking to a man I've admired for a long, long time. With a bit of jealousy, let's make no mistake about it. And he's now in a place that I call my second home. So there's even more jealousy building. He's done it all in the sevens game. He's coached at the highest level. He's played and he's won. He's now in Hong Kong, helping Hong Kong with their next step in their journey. And he's a good friend of Robbie McRobbie, who has been a previous guest on the podcast, and he comes very highly recommended. I'm really excited to get into this one, because we are very close in age, although he looks a good 10 years younger than me. He's obviously had an easier paper round than I've had. He's been involved in the top of the game. He's travelled. He's created many, many memories that people will remember and will talk about for a long time, especially in Hong Kong, where he has been a winner. I'm delighted to welcome the one and the only Mr. Simon Amor. Hello, sir.
Thank you. What an introduction. Wow.
When I talk of jealousy, we were talking off screen there about how you ruined my Hong Kong Sevens experience. Being a Scotsman in Hong Kong, and the first 3 years I was there, England won it, England won it, England won it.
Yeah, they were special times, and coming back to the city now, to actually really appreciate. I mean, because when I first came to Hong Kong, with the tournaments, you did this with the sevens as a player and as a coach all around the world. You see the training pitch, you see the stadium, you see the hotel room, and in Hong Kong you see Wan Chai as well, of course. but what you don't realise here in Hong Kong, which I've had the chance to experience recently, is just the stunning beauty of the outside, the outdoors, the islands, the beaches. Went up to see the Big Buddha the other day. It's just such a beautiful place. So I'm really, really lucky to be out here.
Yeah, so the jealousy just kicks in even more. Like you're killing me here. Yeah, it's a place very dear to my heart. And obviously you've now had the opportunity to go back to work. So you've been there as a player, you've been there as a coach, and now you're back there working for the Hong Kong Rugby Union. We were talking a little bit earlier just about that opportunity. So how did that come about? What was the thinking behind it? And obviously you've accepted it. How does it feel to be there?
Yeah, I mean, so I finished up with England, and I was just exploring kind of where I wanted to go to next. And I was always curious, having been with the RFU for about 7 or 8 years as a coach, and 7 or 8 years as a player, and having worked in the UK sporting system, I'd kind of known and been very fortunate to be within the UK, which is, I guess, respected around the world as one of the top nations in terms of sport, and certainly the RFU, the richest nation in the world. So I was always curious to explore another country, an emerging country, both in terms of sport and rugby. So then when Robbie gave us a shout and said, look, we've had a few challenges recently, COVID's hit us pretty bad. We're changing our program. We've got a change in our coaching situation. So what do you think, Simon? Do you want to jump on board and help us out? So yeah, it was almost written in the stars, I guess. And the idea initially was me to jump out, spend a few months out here and help the team with their Asia Rugby Championship, which was due to be in November, with the goal being for us to win that one. And then on the back of that, they would then give us an opportunity next year to do a World Cup qualifier game against, I think, either Tonga or Samoa, which happens to now be Tonga. And then hopefully, if you win that, you go to the World Cup. If you don't, you go to the repechage, which is in November, and give that a shot, which the guys did pretty close. They did well last time, quite close. Now that was the initial plan. Then of course COVID really kicked in properly. So unfortunately, the Asia Rugby Championship, the ARC, has been put back to next year, and we've had a few more challenges with the quarantine situation out in Hong Kong. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
But you're never ready for that. There's nothing to prepare you for that other than the experiences you've had and then how you respond to it. Now, the Hong Kong rugby community is a village. You very quickly get to know people, and you ask favors and they help you out. How have you found that coming from the RFU, which is in comparison a gargantuan situation? How does it feel in Hong Kong?
Yeah, It's probably actually one of this is what makes it so unique and so special. So whenever, or certainly for myself, whenever I go and work with a team, you kind of look at, well, what's this identity? What sets us apart? And certainly in Hong Kong, with the Hong Kong rugby and the national team, you've got real diversity. We've got, I think about 7 or 8 different nationalities within the men's team. This is. But what you've also got is you've got 6 Premiership clubs that are all within around about half an hour of each other. So everyone is so close. Now, the opportunity in terms of a national team means you can still do national training during the week, every single week, even though they're going to play against each other at the weekend as clubs. But that real community, close village feel makes it very, very tight. Everyone knows each other. It creates a real sense of community, which of course has its strengths and its weaknesses, because everyone's strong opinions, which is what you like. You love that in the game. But yeah, and people are pretty forthright over here at telling you those opinions as well. So
it's amazing that such a small place, and the population of Hong Kong is still big, but the rugby population is small. It's amazing that you can be talking about a country like that, and I know Samoa and Tonga are small, but they have a rugby history. They are naturally built for the game. For Hong Kong to be competing at that level says a lot about the community and the environment that the game is placed in.
Yeah, I think for any team to be successful at the top, it needs a strong community game at the bottom, and that is that you can see at the moment. And I'm just experiencing this. I guess you can see this growth in the Hong Kong game, shifting away from quite a strong expat or very strong expat population in this game to more of the local Hong Kong Chinese. And that's really important to grow this game. And the strap line for Hong Kong is a game for all. And you can certainly see that. And they grow this out. And the interesting challenge, I guess, and the opportunity is just the lack of space you've got out here in Hong Kong for pitches. And it's amazing. I'll go down to Happy Valley and you'll see, there'll be hundreds and hundreds of people out on all the different pitches: hockey, tennis, rugby, football. And for the rugby teams, you've got 3 or 4 teams on one pitch. I mean, it's chaos, but it is brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant. And it creates that real sense of community as a club as well, because you will have on the pitch, you will have the first team with the second team, with the women's team, with maybe the social team as well, which really does help to create this whole we're all in it together sense. So no, it's a very unique environment, and I think it's a brilliant one for anyone that wants to come out here and experience something very unique and very special, and also to get better at, which is what I'll hopefully expand upon a bit more. So
yeah, here, echo all of that. The local Hong Kong Chinese have got some heroes now. Rambo Leung, who you've probably met, was the first Hong Kong native to play in the Hong Kong national team, and is still an absolute superstar and growing the game. And there's heaps of guys who have come through the system. But now with the sevens, there are guys who have really put themselves, literally onto the poster. Who have you arrived and seen in action and thought, wow, this kid or this guy or this girl has really got it?
Well, I've only been out. So, a quick story on this one. I was due to start up quite a while ago to come out to Hong Kong, but I initially was going to fly, and then I had to back in the UK beginning of August. Then I had to fly out to Spain because they changed the quarantine rules. So I had to go out there for 3 weeks. As it was, to then go to Hong Kong for a week's quarantine. And then almost the day I kind of got on a plane after those 3 weeks in Spain, the rules changed. So actually I didn't need to go to Spain. I could have flown straight from the UK. But the quarantine changed to 3 weeks. So it actually took me around about 6.5 weeks to get to Hong Kong, to get out on the plane. So I've only been out now for about 3 weeks. And I haven't actually seen, because of the sevens group in particular with Johnsy, they jumped on a plane pretty much as I was in quarantine to go out and go over to Canada, and they were excellent. I mean, that was
really well.
You could just see the growth, the focus they've made, and that young group coming through. People like Max Denmark and Liam Herbert, and obviously being so strongly captain Max Woodward and Cato. There's such a really good group of people there that have done really, really well. But we've managed to have so far with the national team probably about 2 or 3 sessions, like in the mornings and evenings. And there's some good young Hong Kong Chinese coming through. So like a Sam Soy, who's at Kowloon, tough physical flanker.
Go on the loon. Go on the loon.
And I'll tell you what, they're playing well at the moment. Joe Barker, the CCO, has done a really, really good job. They play with real heart. They play an expansive game, but it's a real great connection you can see within their group at the moment. But Sam's probably the player that's really impressed in terms of being a genuine Hong Kong native, I guess.
They must, and you'll probably play your own role down here, but they must be really excited that somebody like Simon Amor has come to help them with this next bit of development.
I've no idea on that one. I mean,
come on, man, come on.
Like it's all you try and do is you and the key is with these. Look, being candid, they've been through a tough period. Hong Kong rugby's been through a tough period. So for those that don't know, because of the Hong Kong Sevens being cancelled, I guess, there was changes to the program. They went from a full-time program, rightfully so, down to a part-time program. So it's been in a tough place. But you've got an unbelievable sense of commitment from people that want to go on a journey. They want to go on a journey for themselves to try and be the best they can be and try and qualify for the World Cup. They want to go on a journey for Hong Kong rugby. They want to give something back because they love the city. It's just amazing the affection, the affinity that people have out here for the city and for Hong Kong. And you can see they want to give, they want to contribute to the game, they want to contribute to the country, they want to do something that inspires people. And alongside that, there's a lot of people getting some brilliant opportunities work-wise. So they're getting this amazing balance between having this potential to be an Olympian for sevens, a World Cup for 15s, and then go and work from the major finance business organisations and have a major career. I mean, what an opportunity! I mean, it's a dream, isn't it? You kind of, by the age of 30 or something, you could be outstanding. So
it's brilliant hearing you distill it like that. It's brilliant hearing you put into that. Now, I read something that said you were talking about players being amateur, in that this wasn't necessarily their job, but they can still be professional and they can still perform. You hear a lot of discussions about that type of issue. If I had more time, if I was able, but there are a whole load of student athletes who are able to balance. Look at Laura Muir. She's become a vet and she's the top of her game in athletics. Rugby, has it become a bit too comfortable, do you think?
Oh, that's a great question. It's a deep question. I mean, look, this is where I hark back to my glory days.
That's what you're on for. That's why you're here.
When we won Hong Kong the first time, I was still a student at Cambridge University, and I tried throughout my professional career. I always studied, so I then did an MBA, distance learning MBA. And the simple reason for me, always as a professional athlete, was I needed the game to remain, hobby's the wrong word, but I needed it not to be my full-time job because I needed to get away from it. I needed to know that I didn't have a bad day or a bad session. I've got something else to go on to, and I needed to get my brain going, So I definitely think there's something around that for everyone going. It makes people better players. And I think there's loads of work going on. I think professional players are generally getting a better feel for that now. They understand they've got to do something else, whatever that could be. The brilliance, I think, out in Hong Kong again comes to that closeness. But in this squad now, we'd have people that are traders that are working crazy kind of hours, to students, to teachers, to S&C coaches. There's such a variety of a mix. And I guess that's what the opportunity Hong Kong gives you, because it is so close. And you can be, 20 minutes from basically being work. You can be on a pitch at Hong Kong Football Club. It's brilliant and it's absolutely crazy and it's bizarre. But it's the opportunities of the diversity of those careers that I think gives such uniqueness out here.
A lot of rugby can make Jack a dull boy, can't it? So having those other strings to your bow, and I get what you mean, that there's people who I feel have rugby as their job and it really is their job, and there are those who have it as their passion, and you can see the way you talk, it's easy to see it's still your passion.
Well, yeah, you've got to love what you do, and there's all the evidence out there. And the more podcasts you pick up and listen to right now, the more the best people in the world or most successful people in the world. So you've got to be passionate about what you do. I mean, ultimately, you've got to get up in the morning and go, do I want to go and do what I'm going to go and do? Some people say, do I want to go to work and stuff like that? Well, it depends how you determine or define work, But do you wake up in the morning going, come on, let's get on with this day. This is going to be a good one. And that, I think there's guys here that you can definitely see that. And it takes an energy, that's for sure, here in Hong Kong. As I'm lucky to be right in the mix right now, and it is every single day you wake up and there's flipping lights going everywhere, and there's carnage and there's craziness, and it's full on all the time. So I'm sure you need to get away from it. But no, you need the challenge will always be though with these players is how do they balance recovery, and you could end up burning the candle at all kinds of different ends, particularly here in Hong Kong. If you've got a bit of client entertaining to do, which again is all part of it. It's all part of the kind of experience that goes with it. So a bit of discipline, I think, is quite important, probably.
Yeah, when I lived in Hong Kong, I knew a guy who worked for one of the big financial institutions, and he told me he did most of his big deals in the week of the sevens at 3 o'clock in the morning over some kind of drink in Lag Kwai Fong or Wan Chai. Yeah,
but it is still, it is what makes rugby so unique. It's the rugby values, the rugby community, the rugby people that brings all that together, and you can see it. I'm very fortunate to travel the world and seen that. And certainly here, because of the diversity in cultures, what brings them together, whether they're from Canada, USA, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, whatever it is, France, it's the rugby values that brings these people together, which is what the game is built upon, and which must be maintained.
I think you're right, though. It is more concentrated in Hong Kong. And I don't know, I think you might agree with this. I feel that Hong Kong is still running on values that maybe were, and this could be rose-tinted spectacles, but the 70s, 80s of you're there to train hard, work hard, do the best you can, but there are other things going on. It's not, while the result is important and, we want to get to a World Cup and an Olympics and all those things, it's being involved in it that's the important bit.
That's a good one. I don't know enough around all the clubs and to really, but I did have some. To be totally informed on this and have a really good opinion upon it. But I did have a catch up with some of the chairman a couple of nights ago, I think it was. And
Hong Kong's got them already.
it rolls into one. It all does and stuff. Yeah, today's been a long one because we had the boys today were up. So I'm digressing, but I've gone on. The boys today we do a morning session where the guys will come together at the South China Athletic Association on the pitch, and we'll train from 6 until 7 effectively in the morning. So they'll have to get up at like 5:15 or something, or 5:30 to get there and be ready to start at 6 o'clock. So this can be quite a long day for them. So it kind of all merged into one. Anyway, so my bit with the chairman was there's a definite passion around the youth and the age grade rugby and that piece and the importance of committing and playing. At the top end, there is a definite passion around winning. There is a definite, it is about the rivalry, and they want to win the grand final, and they want to be successful. So I do still see that as a strong piece as I have done as I see anywhere else in the world.
And the bit that I hope you get into, and I'm sure you'll get invites from the pot-bellied pigs and all sorts. The touring in Asia is still relentless. Weekend here, tournament there, reciprocal tours there. A Navy ship comes in, right? We're playing them. There's all sorts of things going on. Hong Kong being so small, and everybody gets a shot in it. So I'm going to make sure the boys get your boots back on again for one of those old boys games, because I bet you're still fit as a fiddle.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. And to be fair, actually, our strength and conditioning coach, I'm sure he doesn't mind me saying this, he actually rolled out for the Hong Kong Scottish second team last weekend. And it looks like he's done his bicep, so so that's come off the bone, I think, or something like that. So he's going to go for the op next. So I think I'll give that. I'll give that miss. But it is. I mean, and just going on the Asia thing, it is. because obviously you've got Hong Kong, and it's only, you can be in Singapore in an hour and a bit or something, and everything is pretty close out here in terms of Asia. I think there's also the opportunity to grow the game in Asia is definitely appealing. And it's definitely something I feel lucky to be a part of and to be able to contribute to grow this great game of ours and try and take it out to a pretty growth area right now.
Yeah, I think you'll be awesome at that. So tell me, I guess you're one of those guys who was good at most things, especially for sport. So as you're growing up, there must have been some choices to make. But what was the draw to rugby?
I played a lot of sport, and this is something I massively encourage my own kids to do. Don't push them down the rugby route. They've got to find their passion, and there's loads of evidence out there right now, as well as also to be a successful rugby player top end, the diversity of sports at a young age. It's a late development sport. I think there's lots of evidence out there around that one. So I mean, I played loads and loads of sports, and for whatever reason, I got into a team. I was initially at London Irish as a very young guy, like under 8s, under 9s or something like that, because I lived in Sunbury, which is the old London Irish ground, was a brilliant old ground. And I went through that for about 10 or 12 years and got in with a successful team, but a team I loved being with. So I guess that was the hook. It was a little bit about the quality and possibly being okay at it, but it was also about the group of people that you're with, which I think is still there. I think is still, when I see my kids choose the sport they do first and foremost around the people they're with. It is about that. And again, it goes back to the importance of the values of the game and how community clubs are operated, because that's what you want. You want to bring people in and make them stick.
And you would have been a small kid, I'm guessing.
What are you saying?
Just guessing. But there was a role for you to fulfill.
I didn't know that though. But honestly, like, people have said this before and stuff like that. But I didn't really. I didn't really realise I was ever small until probably I got to about sort of adult age and adults about 18 type of thing, and kind of and some people started telling me properly. So no, I just I was quite competitive. I was very competitive, and I love tackling. I love getting stuck in. I love sevens. I love sevens growing up, and I love it. I loved it because it was I think you got to have a bit of a sadomasochistic kind of instinct. It's like you got to love pain, and I loved pushing myself. I really loved, and I love that feeling of absolutely ending yourself, and there's nothing left in the tank whatsoever, and then really feeling you've earned that drink afterwards. I love that.
And then doing it again. There's a quote, I think it comes from somewhere in America, trying to describe what sevens is, and it's being in a car crash at 70 miles an hour and then getting up and sprinting 100 meters and then doing it again, or there's something about that. So you loved that game in London Irish. So there's a bit that I love to hear. You loved where you were. It probably wasn't the shiny, beautiful facility that lots of people think. Oh, there you go. That you think we need, but there's a desire for that, isn't there? Now people choose a team they wear the same training kit on a Monday and then a different one on a Tuesday, and then they go to this facility, and you were just playing with a group of people you enjoyed spending time with.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's always about the people, and just on that shiny kind of facility. Of course, it's important. You need to provide the right level of standard and at the very, very top end now. You definitely do. But I also remember when I was playing for Wasps, and we trained out of Twyford Avenue, and that was not the sharpest of places. But the quality of people, from Lawrence de Lalio to Rafael Ibanez to Joe Worsley, Josh Lucy, Dane Cipriano. It was just like brilliant world-class people. That's what makes it. And the surroundings can they're secondary always to the people. The facilities are always secondary to the people.
And you played London Irish was home, I suppose, because it was the place you'd spent so much time, and then other opportunities started to come up. What was it like being in that position at that stage of the game, was it easy? Were you being advised? Did you have to seek someone? Did someone come and tap you on the shoulder? How did it work?
So, well, my story was I left school. There was no option to be a professional rugby player when I was at school because the game wasn't professional. It turned professional as I was leaving school. And so back then, like brilliant. I had Dick Best, who was the director of rugby for London Irish and stuff, who was a hell of a character. And they didn't really know what they were doing in terms of professional rugby at the time. The game went professional overnight, and everyone, oh, good God. And you had something along the lines of, people training way too much than they should have been. So come the weekend, they're exhausted, basically. And the part-time teams who had done hardly anything were all nice and fresh. So but basically what it was, I was at university at the same time. So I did this sort of full-time academy, like first thing academy, London Irish. And I also did full-time at St Mary's University. And after around about 18 months, about a year or so, I think it was, I actually got cut from London Irish. I was rejected. So I went through the whole failure sort of piece, which actually I'm sure was brilliant for me, again, in terms of resilience and all the evidence around that. And I then went to university, finished St Mary's, then went to Cambridge University. And just by chance, at the time, the RFU were having a bit of a fallout with the clubs. Who'd have thought? Never would have happened. And what that meant was that they couldn't pick any contracted professional players to play for their sevens. So no clubs would release any of their players to play for their sevens team, for the England sevens team. So Joe Lydon was head coach at the time, just been appointed. And he called me up basically because I was one of the very few people effectively that wasn't contracted. So he was like, okay, well, there you go. And my first tournament, I played 6 minutes. I played 6 minutes in that first tournament. But at least I thought I've got in here at least. And I trained my arse off to try and do it. I was still at university. And the next tournament, I went up to about 8 minutes. I got picked again because the same thing happened. No one can get released. By the third tournament, I think Joe actually thought, actually, this guy's actually, he's not too bad, actually, sort of thing. So I actually got picked, I think, my third tournament or fourth tournament on merit. And then my fifth tournament under Joe was the Hong Kong Sevens, and on that one it was I'm pretty certain he made me captain. It was the first time I was captain. Well, it was him and Mike basically because Mike was being an assistant coach. Geezer days, sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty certain you looked at the team and you went, well, I can't. Which one do I? If I pick Josh Lucy, then I'm going to really annoy Phil Greening, or I'm going to annoy like Jamie Noon, or I'm going to annoy Henry Poole, or it's James Simpson Daniel I'm going to annoy. So somebody's going to get really, really angry about this one. So I'll tell you, I'll pick the student. He'll say nothing. He'll do nothing. And they made us captain for the first for that, and that was the first time we won it. So that was my story. Then on the back of that, I actually got a contract with Gloucester and did that for a couple of years, for 4 years, and loved that time. And then jumped across to Wasps to try and see if I could make 15s work for a couple of years, and it didn't quite work out. So, and I tell this story a little to people, to younger people, to go like there are four things I think you need to make it as a top player. One, you've got to have a little bit of talent. I mean, that is important. You do need something. You've got to have a good work ethic. You've got to put in the hours. That's really, really key. You've got to be resilient because there's going to be the setbacks, but you need to have a bit of luck. You need a bit of being right time, right place. And that was certainly what I had. So that was my story.
So being a student, there are lots of trappings of being a student that probably don't suit being a professional athlete or someone who wants to play at an elite level. But you got to play in the varsity game. Now, I love that. I would love to go and watch that. I think it just looks like an amazing thing. What is it like? Is it this? Everything just builds to this one game?
Yeah.
That's it. It's the cup final. That's it.
It's the one game where you'll do all these matches beforehand, and we played it back in December, and we had about 60,000 at Twickenham. It was an amazing experience, and it was a terrible winter. The weather was awful, so it didn't suit me my game whatsoever at all in year one. But you'd have about 10, 15 games beforehand playing various second teams of Premiership clubs, or you'd have the Steel Bodgers match, and it doesn't matter. None of it matters. You could lose every single one by 100 points. There's only one game that matters, and that's the varsity match. But what makes it so special is there are so many traditions around it. There's the history. There's so much around just being at Oxford or Cambridge, in terms of those rituals that are so unique, that make it so special. It's a brilliant experience. I can't remember quite a lot of them, but I can remember some. I'm pretty certain the other ones are probably pretty good as well.
Yeah, I just love it. And when you see players go, Jamie Roberts went back to having done a whole load of things. Why would he bother? But if he had the opportunity, why not have a crack at it?
And I honestly, if professional players now, if there was a way for them to go on their professional career, on their journey, and then finish it off with going to Oxford or Cambridge, and because it's not just about getting the qualification, it's about the whole life experience that comes with it and the connections you make. I actually went to the varsity match literally about 3 or 4 months ago, because it was our 20-year anniversary from our one, and we've got our next one coming up actually. Because we did 2 years effectively, so the next one coming up in about 3 or 4 months. The connections you make, the job opportunities it creates for you. I mean, it is a brilliant life experience and career experience. So that's, if people get the opportunity, professional players, play a professional game, go to Oxford, Cambridge afterwards. Fantastic.
Yeah, it just looks amazing. And then you say I tried 15s. How easy was it then to jump between the two?
Well, it was definitely a lot easier back then because you didn't have the out-and-out fitness demands that you need the guys to do now. So I was able, I made a lot of sacrifices when I was as a player at 15s to be able to do 7s. So I'd had to do a load of extra top-ups, and but actually the running demands I think now are pretty unique. I mean, it's a different level completely. So a lot more difficult now. The challenge I always had, of course, was a halfback. Halfback. I was playing 9, playing a bit of 10. There's a lot around like managing the game, feeling the momentum. That's quite unique to 15s. You don't really get that in 7s. So it was difficult probably to do both of those ones.
And then you get to go to Hong Kong and you come back, or you go away to a 7s tournament, you come back into a 15s environment. Were there players who would have loved to have had those opportunities when you got back to training? Were there boys saying, what was it like? How did I get to go? Were they tapping you up?
Of course they were. It was jealousy galore type of thing. I remember in 2003, we won Hong Kong. We won Hong Kong on like a Sunday, as it was, something like this. We won Hong Kong on Sunday and had a relatively strong night out. Got on a plane very next day, the next morning, and I was back at Gloucester, and we played in the Power Gen Cup final that Saturday back at Twickenham, and we won that. So in the space of around about 7 or 8 days or something like that, you'd won Hong Kong, you had an unbelievable night out, and then you'd won the Power Gen Cup and had like an even better night out, basically, with some pretty robust Gloucester people. It was fantastic times.
And were you able to enjoy those things? Were you able to enjoy? Well, you know what? There are people who look back and go, I wish I'd enjoyed it more. I was always looking at the next thing, and that always makes me a bit sad. And I heard Rio Ferdinand talk, and it really made me sad because he was saying he was at I can't remember, a Champions League or a Premier League celebration party, but he was into the CEO, right? Who are we bringing in? What's happening next? I'm not celebrating this because I need the next thing. I'll celebrate it when I'm done. And that makes me a bit sad that you're not able to enjoy it when it's there, because there'll be some pretty bloody tough times too.
Oh no, 100%, no, 100%. And you see it probably even more and more now. I don't know if it was possibly just the way that rugby was back in the days, and the characters as well. I mean, you had some serious characters in those England Sevens and those Gloucester days. You know, those boys knew how to enjoy themselves. There's no chance they weren't. So you may have got carried along with that, but I mean, for me, I was incredibly. I'm still a very driven and committed person, but I'd make a few sacrifices in the month or 2 months leading into a major tournament. And then that was almost the reward, I guess. It was that whole, pleasure, pain type of thing. I was putting myself through such challenging fitness and demands that actually that reward. And then I made sure I enjoyed every single moment of that one, and then reset it again to then go for the next month or so. So that was the kind of way I operated. So I think I enjoyed it pretty well.
When you became a coach, I love speaking to sevens coaches who were on the circuit, because it's so different from being a 15s, especially a head coach.
Yeah.
You were able to spend so much time with players in airports and hotels, and on the bus from here to there and back again, and so you will know those players inside out, and they'll have seen a fair window into your life as well. Were you able to communicate a lot of those things to put, you need to enjoy this, picking up on little triggers to try and help them out of something and back into something else?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, you got me stumped on this one. With the sevens, one thing you definitely have, and it's one of the brilliances why you get such wonderful memories that come from it, such close connections, is you spend more time with them than you do with your family, effectively, and it's certainly more time together than you do even with a professional 15-a-side club, I would argue, because there is so much time in hotel rooms, in flights, in airports. It's not just the morning training and then and going home the day, and it's such a close sort of group, so you really do get to know each other very, very closely on that one. And that was interesting. Actually, one of the biggest challenges I find when I actually went and coached under Eddie with England was just you've gone from one extreme of seeing people all the time to then going, you've literally got them for 4 sessions before they play a Six Nations game. That was an interesting challenge, but I'm not sure if I ever really drove home. You've got to enjoy it. I didn't. Maybe I'm not sure on this one. The group we kind of had with the sevens for a long period of time. The enjoyment was always the mindset makes memories was always something that was very, very strong for them. That was kind of instilled in the values. So I'm not certain whether that's something I needed to have driven too much. That was them. That was part of who they were, I think. So.
Yeah, I love that mindset makes the memories. Now, in those sevens moments, I've spoken to sevens coaches before, and I liken it. I don't know if you watched The Simpsons and the episode where the yo-yo team came and gave a demonstration at the school, but then they're all shoved back into the minibus to go to the next school by like the head of the circus almost, and then the next day everyone's playing with a yo-yo because they've got it. And that I sometimes feel that's what the sevens circuit was, right? We're in the Marco Polo in Hong Kong, but next week you're in the whatever in Singapore, and then you've got 2 weeks until you're in the next one. As well as spending time with your own guys, your own team, you must have shared 100 coffees with your enemies, the people you just played in the cup final. Who did you enjoy connecting with in those situations?
So I was there from 2013, I think, to 2020, I think was when I did it. And we actually had quite a consistent group during that period. There wasn't a significant change. So, I mean, you always have, I was fortunate that Mike Geezer was obviously, someone who was my coach and someone who made a massive impact, in me as a player and as a person. And realistically, he was probably the one that probably pushed Joe Lydon to pick me and set me on this journey. And then actually we coached together the England Women's Sevens team for the first time. So I always enjoyed him. It was always interesting, a little bit of rivalry on occasions and stuff like that, because, you know, let's be honest, he's pretty competitive, and he's not afraid from telling you things as well, as we know, sort of thing. So he was always that. So I always enjoyed him. Santi as well was always a good person. Neil Power is a tremendous person as well. I mean, there's a whole group around that. Titch was an interesting one. You know, he was actually, when you got him on his own, you got him like in a cab and stuff like that, you'd have some really good chats with him. His knowledge of the game is unbelievable, of course. You know, and it's interesting because I stole basically one of his fitness sessions by chance. When I was at Cambridge University, one of his players under him, called Owen Scrimmager, gave me one of his fitness sessions. So I used to do that. Like, no one else knew that I had this because All Black Sevens were the best sevens team for a long time because of their fitness demand. So I was copying that whilst I was still doing 3 and sevens. Now there's a lot of good people on that circuit there. A lot of people that because also it's the ups and downs. I mean, the emotions that go with it over a course of a weekend, you know, and everyone looks at each other and kind of goes, Jesus Christ, that poor person's had the tough call from the referee this time. It's their turn to sit there and bite their lip and just go, okay, it's not my time, you know. So I really enjoyed Callum McRae as well. He was really good, and because I really like a really sharp coach, really sharp, clever coach, and Gareth Williams as well. Obviously, we coached together in Rio for the Olympics. Again, I really, really related so well with the players. Really understood key parts of the game. Clever, intelligent coach.
And when you got that chance, I mean, you've done so many things in just the sevens game. To go to an Olympics, I mean, when you were leaving school, couldn't have even been a thing, and then you find yourself in this situation. Were you pinching yourself? Was it just the next job? Was it the biggest challenge you've ever had, or was it just another thing?
I mean, I wasn't pinching myself, but like I felt we talk about having a passion and stuff. Every single day, I lived about a 15-minute bike ride through a place called Bushy Park to where the sevens program was based at the Lensbury in Teddington, and that was my world for 7 years. I had like the best commute in the world to go and do the best job in the world in probably one of the best places in the world. This wonderful sort of place. So I wasn't pinching myself every day, but I knew how lucky I was, and I was, you know, and I had incredible support from the RFU and incredible support from the staff and incredible support from the players right the way through some really tough times as well. But generally I had that. And we based that GB program, excuse me, at that area as well. And there was a really special group of players there. There was 24, 25 players. And it was the toughest thing I've ever done is have to do that team selection, speak to people face to face, and go, "I'm sorry, you're not in this one," because of how close they were as a group and how connected they were. You know, and I remember it so well. The selections, the selections, we basically had it lined up. There was a room in the Lensbury, and we'd agreed that they were all going to we go to alphabetical order, and they come in and they'd have to go back to their rooms at the Lensbury. Some were staying at their rooms there, and you couldn't speak to anyone until you'd done all of them, because you didn't want to give anything away, basically. And the first 3 or 4 were all no's, just the way it worked out alphabetically. And I was like, each one I was going, and Babs was like giving me a bit of a pass in the back. Come on, Simon, you've got this one. There's one more. Come on, and stuff like that. Now the first one that's a yes is Mark Bennett.
My mate Mark.
Yeah. And literally, so I'm sitting there kind of going, well, I finally got a yes to this one. Sort of thing. Okay, like, Mark, I can't exactly it. Mark, you know, Benzo, look, you've been fantastic and stuff like that. Congratulations, you're selected. And what does Benzo do? I'm expecting, you know, yes, get in there. Come on, let's go. The emotions. He just goes, aye, that's good. And that's it. And I'm sitting there going, you're what? I've had people in tears for the past like half an hour. and that's all I get. But Benzo's
Yeah,
like, he's a
there's
brilliant
not a lot
person.
of emotion there.
He's dry as it goes. Sort of thing.
He's carving it up for Edinburgh at the moment. He's playing very, very well.
He's a quality player, and a quality person as well. So
yeah, I spoke to Clark Laidlaw the week
yeah.
he was going to tell the New Zealand players that they weren't going to Japan, and he was Clark's miserable anyway, but he was he was struggling. He was struggling with that one, and I certainly don't envy you, because to tell someone no must have been tough. To tell someone yes must have felt amazing, other than Mark Bennett, because he's miserable. But so you get to Rio. I mean, to me, that's a kid in a candy store. Was it just all about the job? Were you able to enjoy the village? Did you speak to other athletes and coaches and do all that learning you're supposed to do? Or was it just job done?
Oh, good. I've been, because of my role previously with like UK sport, I had a relatively decent connection with quite a lot of people in the UK sporting system anyway. So it's more like seeing old friends. But what we were able to do was just to leverage quite a fair bit more of the personality. So I remember we had Sir Chris Hoy did the shirt presentation and the speech to the guys there. And Andy Murray came and did something with the guys as well. And so that it was stuff like that made it like really unique and special for and the thing that makes it brilliant is the Olympics is one thing, but it's GB coming together, particularly in rugby terms where you very rarely get to be as GB. It's so unique and special, and that certainly gives you an advantage. I mean, there was. I mean, of course, there's always pressure. You want to be successful, but the way that group basically set their goal, if you like, it was all about the emotions and the feelings and the connections. So the bit basically was if there's a medal on the wall, okay, when you look at that medal, what do you feel? Okay. Now, if you feel something that's freaking amazing and wants to take you back there, then that's a great thing. If it's not, then we've got this wrong. So it was always about a bit more than just the medal. It was about the emotions that it affected and the journey you kind of went on, and that medal symbolizing that. So
it was such an amazing start to that Olympics, and I think it hooked so many people. And the women's game was incredible and opened so many eyes. Now, you're not a stranger to the women's game. You've had a really unique involvement in women's sevens because you were running 2 programs. Did you stand back and watch that with pride? Were you telling people I told you so? What did you have? What feelings, I suppose, did you have around that?
Well, Mike and I set up the first like England sevens, women's sevens team, and that was, I guess, it was a real pleasure to be involved in starting something that you knew was just going to get on this wave of momentum, because they were just a brilliant group of girls, brilliant group of girls. I wasn't involved so the 2 programs were separate then. It was after Rio that I then became head of both programs and integrated it together. But what was amazing, it's difficult to articulate this too well, was in the village itself, you had all the screens up everywhere, and the rugby sevens just captured like all these different athletes. And of course, I wouldn't get to see it too much when the men's were playing, because I was at the tournaments, the men's. But when you're back when the women were playing, you could see these athletes just crowded around the screens, and these female athletes, and you could see them. They're just going, and you go, well, she's obviously a sprinter, and this one's probably a wrestler or something like that. There's all these different types of athletes who were sitting there curious, kind of going, I can relate to that. I can see that my sport in there. And it was, you could just see as a result of that, you went, this is going to go through the roof, because so many people connected to it. So.
Yeah, it was. My wife watched it, and my wife's from rugby background, and uncles, dads, cousins, everybody, husband plays rugby. But she was watching that, and I'll never forget her saying this to me. That makes me want to go and play rugby.
Yeah.
But I know that if I went to play it, it would look like that.
Which is where the social game is so important.
Yeah, of course.
The top end, those girls, the top end fitness levels of those girls, and those girls have been on a journey. A lot of the GB girls, they've been doing this now for 6-7 years. To get them to those levels of fitness it's hard work, it's sacrifice, and no one sees all that. They see all the smiles and the beautiful sun and stuff, but they don't see the pain, the daily pain. So their commitment there has just been exceptional.
Yeah, I loved it, and it was great to see the tournament live up to it again in Japan. I think I don't know, maybe that's the Scotsman in me, but I was watching it thinking, oh God, I hope this is as good to keep this momentum going, especially on the back of a bloody terrible Lions tour. The Olympics was for me the highlight of the summer.
Oh, how good. The quality of the play there. I think if you'd have taken a snapshot then of some of and the girls, their first one in Rio, it was always going to be, we're starting on the journey here of the gaming. If you'd have seen that and then look at it 5 years later, the progress, and then you're thinking, well, where will it be in 3 years' time?
Yeah.
I mean, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal, the growth, and it's so exciting where it could be. I'm hoping my daughter is she's been working on her kicking quite a fair bit. She's suddenly got the bug. She didn't want to initially, but she was getting out in the garden and going, Dad, can we do kicking? So yeah, hopefully.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that one for the future. Yeah, I just loved it, and I think one of the positive things that's helping grow the game is the female athletes seem still accessible on likes of social media. There's a lot of Holly Aitchison's busy, Burf, who's been an amazing ambassador for the game, Golden Balls as Rocky calls her, Emily Scarrett. There's all those great role models, and in Australia, Charlotte Caslick, the black, Portia Woodman is just off the chart. Ruby too, who is her interview with Jill Douglas was just amazing, awesome. And
the great thing about that is all what you're talking about there. All these people are genuine.
Yeah,
that is all the people you've named. They're not. That's not acts. That's who they are. That's who they are. What they put out there on the social media, on the TV, and stuff like that. So,
and part of it is that they're having to live that other life that you've described. Because they're not making enough to just do that job and then put their feet up and recover. They're out doing courses, or they're running camps, or they've got their S&C coaches or teachers or any of those. And I just think it adds to the engagement that they're now getting, and I think it's amazing. I can't wait to see what it's like in 3 years' time.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And the women's game in Hong Kong, are you going to have any input into that? Mate of mine, Ian Monaghan's the Sevens coach, talking to somebody that had a little run around for Hong Kong Scottish at the weekend. I think he's probably still limping as we speak.
I was there last night at Hong Kong Scottish with him coaching. So him and PJ, Peter Jurivovich. Sorry,
PJ. He should still bloody be playing. When you see him, tell him. Oh, he was good. I'm pleased.
He was. They've got a couple of injuries, so he's playing 10. And it was great. And this is the way it worked. He was playing 10, and he had his coaching notes like down the front of his shorts whilst he was still playing 10. So he'd like do a crossfield kick in the games, and he'd check his notes. Where am I in the second now? Effectively, right? Okay, brilliant. And Ian was there a long time. I've been helping Royce out a little bit. So Royce is the women's head coach and also the Kowloon head coach. The women's game here is like this.
Yeah.
It's and the challenge I think for Hong Kong will be it'll be this capacity thing. It's like, well, how do we're getting all these people come? There's loads of people on the pitches. How do we keep on making it a great environment for them? So
I love it. I love your enthusiasm. I think it's going to be such a good move for Hong Kong. Now, I can't have you on talking about Sevens without talking about invitational teams and tournaments, because it's unique to rugby. I'm not aware of really, football doesn't seem to have an invitational element to it until you become retired and you want a jolly to Hong Kong Football Club for a week or something. The invitational element, how big a part does that play in the development of teams, of coaches, of the game, of growing the game? Can you still see that having a role?
I think in terms of the global growth of the game, I think it's in many, many ways. I mean, there's the commercial side of things, the exposure. But particularly in sevens, I think there'll be few sports around the world where globally you could get someone going from a social team, an amateur team, if you like, and then in the space of 2 or 3 years playing on a World Series for the national team. So I think it's a really integral piece of this in terms of those two areas, growing the game and in terms of the top end, I think. And that's the excitement, isn't it? I mean, it's where do you see someone that could play in a social tournament one year and then next year they could play in the World Series? I mean, but that's what you have. That's what it does. That's what it creates. So no, I think it's fundamental.
And in your history with Hong Kong, which is a romance, really, it loves you and you love it. Were you able to enjoy Rugby Week when you were there as a player and a coach? Did you get down to the tens, or is that something you're looking forward to if and when the chance comes?
So as a coach, I managed to get down a little bit with the because we used to have a couple of players who sort of play in it, and so and I definitely remember with Samurai once. I mean, Terry's never forgiven me, where I actually pulled one of his best player before the final, because for England we picked up a knock, and I was like, oh no, we can't. Oh, I'm going to go and have a conversation with Terry. And the look on his face was rightfully so. But I'm so sorry, but we're playing in Hong Kong sevens, and I need to have a team and stuff like that. So no, a little bit, but not an awful lot.
Yeah, it's definitely something to look forward to. I promise you, it's something I miss hugely. Is that run up to the main event? So as you look to the future and you've got your crystal ball out, phone call comes in from the new franchise based in San Francisco. Simon, the road show's coming. We've got 12 cities in America over a 4-month period. It's a 6 months contract. Come and build us a squad and take us on tour.
The number one thing for me right now, and this is something I've been poor at for ever since day one, is my family's probably pretty much come second a lot of the time for me. So I've got to find a thing of actually making my family come first. So whatever decisions I make, I've got to make sure I get that one right. And I've definitely learned in this world, and particularly maybe COVID more than giving this clearer than anything, is trying to plan anything right now is just pretty much impossible. You go with what your heart is telling you. You go with where your passion, your emotions are at the time, and then you go with the flow. And the passions and emotions are pretty strong here in Hong Kong right now. So
I absolutely love this. I'm looking at the clock thinking, no, we're nearly finished. But when you look back on all this good stuff you've had, we've spoken a little bit about some of the, not necessarily failure, but tougher times. But mostly the two of us have sat here with smiles on our face talking about the good times that this game can bring. As you look back, what people really stand out as, the foundations of Simon Amor, the man he is now?
Oh, wow. Flipping heck. That's a big question.
I'm intrigued here because Geezer's obviously played a role. Your family have to be playing a role to support how you've gone.
I was lucky. My dad did, like most, I guess, like a lot of kids and stuff. The parents drove me around all over the country and gave me huge support to give me the opportunities to play all these different sports and the stuff that goes with it. I was lucky to have a teacher at school. I went to Hampton School. And a short story on this one. We weren't the best team at all. We were dreadful, in fact. But he would not let us kick the ball. In 15s, we wouldn't let us kick the ball. And the result of that was, come the 7th season, we were bloody good. It meant I was a dreadful kicker. But what experienced the result was we were some of the best decision makers, because naturally we'd done, and every team knew this at the time, and he was constantly overachieving, I think, by producing England people. So I was really influenced by him, Steve Timms, as a school teacher. So it just shows the importance of school teachers, the influence they can have on people's lives. There's no way I'd have played sevens for England if I hadn't have been taught by that teacher. Nowhere in the world. So I was very fortunate coaching-wise to have been coached by Nigel Melville, Dean Ryan, I'd like to say Dick Best, Sean Edwards, Ian McGeechan. I was really lucky on that side as well. So there's quite a few people who influenced. Joe Lydon, another one. I'm really lucky, really lucky.
I love it. So I get to speak to a player next week that Simon Amor was his head coach. What does the player say about Simon Amor?
That depends upon the player.
Oh, come on. There must be
No,
some consistent messages
no,
here.
no. There is. I mean, look, there is something you grow as a coach right the way through on your coaching journey, and certainly, you know, I was very much as a younger coach. I was very much more like I was as a player. I was strong with my opinions, forthright in my views, quite dictatorial and stuff, and I grew on that journey about the importance of connecting with people in their kind of way, looking it through their eyes, understand before being understood. And the biggest thing as I keep on trying to work on is understanding the individual. And so England Sevens is a great example. You get some very educated people that have been to the top universities, and how you connect with them over some people that are leaving school yesterday, had a bit of a tough upbringing, and you try to, as a coach, to connect with those in totally different kind of ways. And they call it the authenticity paradox, don't they? Everyone wants you to be authentic, and you have to be authentic to yourself, but you've got to be able to flex it around to connect with everyone in a team sport. It's what makes a team sport so brilliant and so challenging. I'm sure that's not a cop out, but
no, I love it. I absolutely. I know that the reason my eyes.
Passion, energy, and commitment. I'd like to think if people would say, I'd have made a hell of a lot of mistakes, but I think they would have known I was committed and passionate. So.
I can see that. I'm writing some of this stuff down. That's why I'm looking down here. I've written understand before being understood. That is gold, my friend. I love that.
I'm only stealing that off of Stephen Covey or something, or it's the prayer of Francis Assisi or something. So it's only other stuff that you've read and you're picking up and going, and yeah,
I love it. Right now, I've got a real serious question here. Okay. Who and when and how often have you been told to get a real job?
Oh, God, yeah. I'll say when I was traveling the world, I mean that was almost on a daily basis by friends, sort of thing. You know, it's probably why I stay away from social media so much. People can't tell me about that. No, but it's the point. It goes back into the passion and stuff like that, and it's like, you know, it's how you define a job. You know, it's never sort of 9 to 5. You know, you wake up in the morning at 5 in the morning or something like that, and you go, right, I'm excited about doing something that makes me feel I've got a purpose and make a difference. You know, that's not a job. That's a way of life, isn't it? So, yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Right, I'm going to drop this one on you because I know you've not listened to any of these before, and don't pretend you have. But at the end,
you're right. I'm so sorry.
At the end, I ask the guest to finish the sentence. So, for you, Simon Amor, happiness is.
Oh, flipping heck! What a great question. For me, happiness is definitely knowing you're making an impact and knowing you've got a purpose. I mean, that I'm really lucky. It's a really interesting one. Having won a few things, like as a player and a coach, and gone through that process of the winning being important. And I think that's honest. That's, you know, I wanted to win. And, you know, a medal at Commonwealths and World Cups and Olympics and the Six Nations. It's like, and it's good. It's good for you. But when you drill away from that, it's the difference you make in people and other people, and the conversation you have, and you see people, like how they can go on. In this world in particular, this is a tough world right now, with everyone judging each other on social media, and particularly with COVID and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. The seeing you make difference in other people's lives and the ripple effect that can have, it makes you so content. It genuinely does. My God, that's a long sentence.
Simon, do you know, I absolutely love it. And just as you mentioned the Six Nations, I'm covering my face here in shame. We've not even got to that, and we're over an hour. So I reckon this just cements that you're going to have to come back for part 2.
I'll work out the answer to that sentence.
Simon, listen, I was delighted when Robbie McRobbie hooked the two of us up in kind of his way of being Tinder, I suppose. And he's brought us together, and you know, we share a lot. We have met, not that you'll remember it, but we have met before, and I've loved watching what you do. I was so pleased when I saw you were going to Hong Kong, because I love the place dearly, and I know that you're going to make it a better place than you found it. So all the very best, and thank you so much for giving up your time.
Pleasure. Enjoyed it. Loved it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. See you soon, hopefully in Hong Kong.
Good man. Cheers.
Well, I absolutely loved it. What a man. An absolute ball of positive energy. And I've got no doubt we're going to be hearing great things about him from the time he's in Hong Kong and wherever else he ends up next, because I'm not buying any of that rubbish about the family coming first. The family are going to be first when Simon is doing the good stuff and impacting on people. Understand before being understood. I'm taking that one. That's my takeaway. If you've enjoyed it, you can catch us on Apple, Acast, and Spotify. I'm blown away here. I've absolutely loved it. I hope you've enjoyed listening. My name is Bruce Aitchison, and my happiness is egg-shaped, and I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. Thank you.